Hey Amanda, it's Sean.
Hey, what's you doing?
I'm thinking to myself, you sound like shit.
Oh, well, gee, I love you too, Sean.
Gorsh.
uh,
Yeah, I know you're sick. I was
I
just,
know. It's okay. Everybody tells me I sound like shit, so it don't matter.
well, that's one thing we all have in common. Every one of us has sat on the toilet, and so every one of us knows what shit sounds like.
Very funny.
Or rather, an asshole talking shit, which is what I'm doing now. I'm walking on my hands talking shit.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for the video and calling me a superhero. That actually made me cry.
Oh, don't cry about that. I wasn't trying to be hurtful.
No, not hurtful, just happy.
I've had a lot of heroes, you know. There's a lot of people need to be recognized for what they do, and for that's something that's always been important to me, you know, letting people know when they do good and that they are doing good, and very much trying to focus on that, you know.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I got all my air purifiers. It cost me $600.
uh
Yeah, which I thought it would be more, but thank God I found the good ones that were on sale. So I've
well
got them all going, all five of them, plus the filters for my vents and the floors.
I,
So
I I don't think that there's a real great possibility that they're going to give me back pay for all the time that I've missed if they give me my disability back.
yeah.
But if you're not able to get the money to come down here, I'm willing to pitch because I really do need your help.
Well, they they went through with the stimulus package, so I will be getting $3,400 from the government because of the coronavirus. So, as long as this crap gets over with and the swimming pool opens in Chapel so Anthony can go swimming, that's the only thing that's going to stop me from going because I can't take Anthony to Nebraska and have him bored unless I could take him swimming.
I get that.
Yeah, because my dad don't have internet and our phones don't work half the time in Nebraska. So it will be meltdown city. So I need to make sure he's distracted, you know?
I do. I
Yeah.
absolutely do. Trying to explain, me using video games to distract myself because of the overwhelming environment, it's something that's difficult. And for him,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's not happy about school being out. He don't understand why, and he just put a nice big hole in my hallway wall with his head.
Uh,
Yeah, so now I gotta fix a wall.
well, at least I got more control than that. But I mean, that's the thing with you is that you understand autism as a spectrum, and we're not all the same.
Well, it's because he had to go to his dad's because I can't take care of him in this state, and he had a major meltdown because he hasn't seen his dad in over 2 weeks, and he just hates going to his dad. So he had a meltdown, and I finally got him okay to get out there, but I had to bribe him and tell him he will have a new Pokemon if he goes be good for Daddy Josh. That's what he calls him. For 7 days so I could get better. Yeah.
So, do you have the coronavirus or just the flu?
No. I have, for the first time in 20 years, my asthma has flared up to the point where all my bronchial tubes are completely swollen. You can see it on my chest. My chest is swollen too.
You drinking hot liquids?
Yes, nothing with ice. And they've got a nurse coming doing IV treatments for steroids and crap every afternoon. I got to do it for the next 7 days, which my chest isn't as tight as it was because I've started the treatments, but they wanted to put me in the hospital the next 7 days, but they said I'd probably catch the coronavirus if they put me in the hospital.
Yeah, I've been worried about that. I got my friend Kim, she's a nurse, and her mom, Terry, she's a nurse too. So I'm kind of worried about them. They've been having a shortage of the masks that they need, the N95 masks.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it happened down here too, but somebody donated a lot to our hospitals, which I'm thankful for because they needed them. But
yeah, I made a post about that myself. The thing is, it's not that I don't care about the coronavirus. It's that there's a lot of stuff going on that everybody's focused purely on that. And there's a lot of stuff that was going on right before that we do need to pay attention to. The coronavirus ain't gonna be shutting us down forever. And after all this is done, we got to worry about other human beings too. I mean, we can't expect our rights to be observed if we're not observing the rights of others.
Yeah, well, have you heard from the autism people?
I have. They're supposed to call me back sometime today.
Okay, so what's going on their end?
They're helping me to get my back. We're having some complications because I don't have a PO box for my lawyers to send stuff to.
Yeah.
Well, for my lawyers, the public pretender's office is to send it to, because nearly all of my lawyers have been sent to other jurisdictions. This is all recent development since I have been attempting to pursue them in court. They've been basically sent to other jurisdictions, so it's impossible to find them, get a hold of them, or take them to court.
Yeah.
A lot of them have been promoted for the illegal activities that they did in my case to help cover up for the wrongdoing of judges and other lawyers, and also the police. So it's really it's a try or die situation for me.
Yeah.
But the Autism Society is very limited on what they're allowed to do.
Yeah, I know.
And that's a lot of the issue. Like when I had Tamara for a caseworker here in Nebraska, like,
yeah,
that was exactly what I needed. If she'd have stayed on and not quit her job, then she could have totally helped me to avoid all of this, and she could have explained to people in a way that they would understand, and there's a possibility that she could have gotten an arbiter for me and Natalie to actually talk to one another with an arbiter between us, which is really what needed to happen.
Yeah, well, you can't get another caseworker, or they don't offer that anymore, or what's going on with that?
I did get another caseworker. Her name was Jen Beebe, but she was completely fucking ignorant, and now she's not calling me back. She ended up fucking me severely, and by not writing it down, the cops here told her that I had reached for their gun and that I had attempted to suicide by cop. And that was that weighed real heavily on her decision to have me committed, when I had admitted to her that I tried to kill myself a week earlier before she came down. And I was trying to explain to her what was going on with the police there, how they were covering up for their wrongdoings, how Sheriff Scott DaCosta was involved in it, and all of that. But the thing is that those officers were right there being intimidating as fuck. Hovering over, and I needed Jen to stop and listen to what was going on. And that was right after the situation at Joseph Michael Lopez's court date that I went to, where that lady who is pretending to be an autism advocate, what was her name? Kara Johnson Miles or whatever. She was actually also supposedly friends with Natalie's ex-stepmom, the one, you remember that email I sent you that I forwarded from Natalie? Yeah, that stepmom, that's the one that was in that email. Natalie was worried about that she thought her dad had beaten to death.
Oh.
So when Shannon Alvarado showed me that Kara Johnson Miles was not an autism advocate and that she wasn't trying to help me, that she was just slandering me in these Natalie Bollinger groups, she slandered me to Shelly Campbell, and Shelly Campbell blocked me immediately. And that lady, Kara Johnson Miles, was texting a whole bunch of mean shit. Like, she literally went from, you know, Shelly's worried about you and this, that, and the other, to you were doing this and you were doing that and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, holy shit, this woman is a fucking psycho.
Oh, jeez.
Yep. But you know me in real life. Like, am I a violent person?
No, you're misunderstood because you get obsessed with stuff because of your autism, and people don't understand that you just gotta let you go through. Like when you start having your meltdowns and telling everybody and yelling about kill me, that's just like a meltdown happening, you know? And it's because you're overwhelmed, and people don't understand that. They think you're trying to get attention, and that's not what you're doing. You're trying to release it so you feel better. Yeah.
Well, it's also, you know, like the fact that I really do need help. I need help in person.
Yeah,
you know,
I know.
Like when you came down, you know, was it because of the way that I act that you weren't able to help me?
No, I just couldn't get a car, and my mom was being needy, and yeah, I mean, that's the only thing.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of people offered to help me, and they all had those problems, but the cops, they slandered me in court by saying that nobody would help me. And the thing is that I in those phones that were stolen, I mean, and it's not just the phones. I mean, I have a lot of that stuff on in my Facebook Messenger too, where people are like, you know, my son is sick, or my daughter has the flu, or like with Mandy, her daughters both got MRSA, you know, and they were in the hospital for a while. And then she was going to help me again, but she wasn't able to because her hot water heater busted. And then she was going to go in with me to go talk to the police, and she wasn't able to because she had warrants out for her arrest. And I mean, this is all stuff that,
Wow.
right? But the difficult part is, you know, getting people to speak up in public. A lot of people were afraid of being targeted the way that I was, and I got a lot of, you know, screenshots and stuff of that too, where people are like, "Hey, dude, I was gonna try to help you, but you know, I've got people that are, you know, threatening me and harassing me and all that kind of stuff." And you know, that's why Mandy didn't want her name coming out, is that, you know, she saw that stuff and she didn't want it happening to her.
Yeah.
But then, like, she ended up getting targeted by the police too. And when she decided that she was no longer going to be my friend, she went to the cops and was against me. Then magically they can hear everything that she's got to say.
Of course, yeah.
But you know that you understand, you know, I mean, your son's autistic. You know that, like, it's difficult when you have a kid that's autistic to make that time. And you know, if it's between your job and your kid, you have to choose your kid.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't work because my kids come first before anything. Yeah.
And they have to. And see, that's the thing with Tamara. That's the reason that she quit her job. Like, she realized that with this stuff happening to me, that this very easily could happen to her son. And that was like 7 or 8 months before Natalie was killed that she quit her job. It might have been even more than that. But I was trying to get it set up with Front Range, or in the Front Range there in Colorado. That's the reason that I was trying to go through Jeff Ritter with the Colorado Coalition of the Homeless, and why I was trying to go through Kara Heller, but like, they didn't understand either. You know, I was trying to get an autism specialist down there and an autism advocate, because I mean, I needed people to stop abusing me, and that's the thing. I mean, I still need that. I need the abuse to stop. But when I got overwhelmed with it all, I mean, I started being an asshole to people. I really did.
Yeah, that's what my son does. He becomes an asshole. Yeah.
Yep.
But my son gets violent. Yeah.
Well,
So
he's also, you know, lower functioning than I am by quite a bit. Like for
yeah, he
me,
is.
I understand a lot of social stuff, but I also like growing up with it and also growing up with a lot of victims of domestic violence, domestic abuse, and also racial intolerance and things of that nature. Like as a kid living through it, and then as an adult studying it, it's like the difference between it's like the difference between somebody growing up with auto mechanics and, you know, being the son of an auto mechanic, living in the shop, knowing the names of all of the tools and actually working with those tools, you know, and actually breaking a few vehicles themselves and having to fix it, and then going to college, a trade school to be an auto mechanic, versus somebody who, you know, all they've ever done is see them on a computer screen and they're like, you know, I want to be an auto mechanic. I want to be an auto mechanic. And then once they, you know, become, once they start going to college for it, like they don't know the names of the tools, they don't know the measurements, they don't know the firing order, they don't know any of that stuff. And by the time they get done with college, they do know quite a bit. I mean, they're interested in it, but they haven't lived it. So they're not going to be as good as somebody who grew up with it their whole life.
Yeah.
So for me, you know, being high functioning, having a high intelligence quotient, growing up in it, and also studying it, because this is something that as a kid growing up with it, I wanted to make sure as an adult that I could do something about it. And as an adult, it isn't any better. People have their assumptions and they're going to punish you over their assumptions.
So your autism group that's getting in contact with you, have they had any headway on your disability?
We have the problem that we're gonna be encountering is me not having an ID and not having a bank account. But we're also,
is that going to be hard for you to get?
it will be without an income. That's the thing, is that I need the income to get the stuff that I need in order to get the income. Catch 22.
Oh, okay.
And that's the problem through all of this. Like when I explain a safe environment for a lot of people would just be like what I have now is a roof over my head. I mean, that gives me so many rights just because I'm here in this household and there's somebody else here. I have a lot more rights than if the cops were to catch me just walking down the road like they did back in December.
Yeah.
But also, they don't understand the sensory overload. Like, I literally need peace and quiet or I can't function.
Now, I have a question. Your ID, what's holding up on your ID? Do you have your birth certificate to get your ID and all that?
I do, but it got eaten. I got it in my back pocket here. It's in a few different pieces because the dogs got a hold of it. But
no.
the problem with my ID is that, first of all, it costs money to get that, and I don't have any money. A lady sent me $50 back in January, I want to say. But that's all the money that I've really had to work with. Chris Stegman gave me $5 last week to get sugar so that I can have sugar in my coffee, and that was a big help too. My birth certificate, of course, got torn to fucking shreds. It's got bite marks in it. Bark marks.
Are they going to accept that, or are they going to make you get a new one?
I don't know, but I do know that it all takes time, and the longer amount of time that it takes to get this stuff, the more screwed I am. And that's a lot of the issue that I'm having with all of this, is that, you know, it only takes them 10 minutes after I've gone to one of these places to put the bill in the mail and start sending that shit out like it's wildfire. And, you know, when it comes to the things that I need, they're fucking 3 months now. I've been waiting on Jen Beebe to get back to me. You know?
the checking account, don't you need your ID to open the checking account, and then you need.
And I need money to open the checking account. And here in Chapel, I don't know if it's before. Before they would open your checking account, as long as you had $100 in it, you could open it up. But you could open up.
Since when?
Well, see, when I first opened a checking account here way back in the day, it was only $20, but it wasn't $20. It's $20 to just to open an account.
Yeah.
But that was the very first time I did it, and they changed it to $100 when I tried to open a checking account, and at the time I didn't have the $100, so they wouldn't let me do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's still $25 down here to open a checking account.
Well, it's still more than I got, but if I figure it's going to cost $27.50 to get the ID, and let's say it is only $25 to open up my account, I need 2 forms of ID in order to get my ID, or I need 2 people to sign that they have known me for 15 years or longer, which I can do that. There's so many people that work in the courthouse that have known me for 15 years or longer, so that shouldn't be a difficult thing. But in order to get my birth certificate, I would have to have 2 forms of ID to get my birth certificate, which if my birth certificate isn't going to work, the only form of ID that I have is my social security card. And I'll have to travel to Scottsbluff to do that, or I'll have to send them. They can't take copies of it. I have to send them the actual birth certificate and the actual ID and the actual social security card to Scottsbluff, and then hope that they send it back. Now, I did that once already a few years ago, and they never sent me my stuff back, so I had to go through and try it again.
Oh my God.
Yep. And while I was in the process of trying to get it back again, I got lucky and I did get it. But the thing is, like, that only happened because Officer Steinman stole my ID.
Oh, okay.
Yep. He ran my ID over at the Shell station in Boulder, and then he didn't give it back, and he was threatening to throw me in jail when he didn't give me back my ID. For causing a disturbance and so on and so forth. So I basically just had to give up on my ID, and I was able to come back to Nebraska and get it, thank goodness. But it was a giant pain in the ass. And they do that a lot down there. They want to steal your ID. That way they can run your name whenever they want. They can hold you for up to 72 hours because you don't have an ID. And then you get sick of being held for up to 72 hours. So you eventually leave, and that's what they're trying to do. When you're homeless, they just want to run you off everywhere you go.
Okay, so the first step, you need to get that ID, then you need to get a checking account, and then you should be able to get your disability back?
Sort of, yes. I mean, we're still going through all the process of that. So I mean, we seriously don't know everything that we're going to have to go through. I do know all of the steps that I've gone through in the past and what they require from having to go through it before. But as far as getting my disability back, like my biggest issue that me and my dad had was that my dad thought that I should be able to just walk in at 18 and get disability money because he and my mom both collected disability money for me all growing up. They both got paid for me, and that's a big thing that my dad was talking about, how my mom doesn't really love me. She only took me because she was getting paid money to take me by the state and so on and so forth, which I don't have any problems believing that, but
no.
I mean, Eric got to go out and do a bunch of drugs and fucking get drunk all the damn time, and I was grounded to my room the whole time I lived with her. Lucky me, I didn't have to live with her longer than 6 months.
Well, hopefully they call you and let you know what you all have to do. It just takes time. I know disability. When I got Anthony on the supplemental income for his autism, oh my God, was it a headache. It took me like 7 months. Yeah.
It
It
took
was
me
such a headache getting back on that crap.
it took me 20 years. Well,
Oh,
19 years. And a lot of that, they kept on refusing me my disability. Like, my deal for living with my Aunt Mary when I was, like, I moved in with her right before 9/11.
yeah.
And the deal with her and I, because my dad was the one that, was in charge of all of that, was that I had to apply for disability. Now, because I applied for disability, um, they first of all, I was denied for the military, but that's later on in the story. But I applied for disability, and my Aunt Mary, at the time, she had just changed insurance providers. She's a very large woman, and she was trying to get a stomach stapling. And since she changed insurance providers, and her insurance came up on her vehicle, and her homeowner's insurance on the duplex came up, and all of that other stuff, um, like I had to get a job. So then I was denied disability because I got a job, and I tried to get into the military, and they wouldn't take me because I applied for disability. They said,
yeah.
"Well, you have Tourette syndrome, you have ADHD, you have obsessive compulsive disorder, so we can't take you. You'll accidentally shoot somebody." But that's the roundabout in the story. But the long version of the story includes them threatening me with Leavenworth if I didn't tell them, that I had these things. But that just ended up being, it got so expensive to live with my Aunt Mary that I finally, once everything was all paid up and I knew that she was going to be fine on her own, I fucking dipped out. I was like, fuck this. Went back to chapel, lived with Brandon Jepson for like 2 months. Um, it was a fucked up situation.
Oh, I can imagine.
That was when he was going to get back together with Brooke Beardsley, and she got into that car accident and died.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you remember that at all.
Oh, yeah. My Aunt Stephanie's best friends with the whole family. I know.
Yep. So that's a lot of the stuff I'm working on. Um, I'm really, I'm not trying to sound selfish here, but I really hope you're able to come.
Oh, well, you don't need to sound selfish. I want to come. First of all, I could probably breathe better in Nebraska in the first place.
Yeah.
Because my car, you should see my car, it's completely yellow. It's not even white anymore. All the pollen everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. So I want to get up there. It's just, first of all, I don't even know if the kids are going back to school. They won't decide until March 30th. And if they do go back to school, we still got to stay here until May 21st. I don't know what's going on down here. They just keep delaying and delaying everything. Yeah.
That's what you get for getting sick.
Ha ha, I did it on purpose. Yeah.
Yep. You know what? It is your fault. You chose this. You wanted this. It was your actions that led to this, and you deserve it.
Oh, yeah, I know.
That's what people keep
I love
telling
taking
me.
steroids through IV that give me a reaction of my chest turning red and my face turning red, and oh yeah, it's just fun.
Isn't it? So do they have you on a bronchial inhibitor?
Oh, I've got to do breathing treatments like 6 times a day, which I'm about to do for another one.
Yeah, that's probably got a lot to do with me making you talk so much.
Yeah, I haven't been talking. I've just been sitting here not talking to anybody lately, but I thought I'd let you give me a call because I want to hear your voice, and you've been so sweet on Facebook and everything, so.
Well, I'm an asshole on Facebook, too. I hope you see that part.
Oh, well, I don't care about the asshole part. I mean, it don't bug me any. Everybody's an asshole in their own way. I mean.
Right. Well, I wasn't saying those things to get you to talk to me. I was saying those things just so you know you were
I've been wanting to
appreciated.
talk to you for a while now. I just kept getting slammed with everything. Yeah. It's it's hard to call people. My mom sits here and calls me at least twice a day, leaving me voicemails saying, "Why aren't you answering phone? What's going on? Call me back." Well, then she's texting me, "What are you doing, Amanda? Why aren't you answering?" I'm all like, "Woman, I've got a life. I've got kids, and now I'm sick, and I have a home health nurse coming in my house every day." I said, "What the fuck do you want me to do?" I mean, my God.
And see, that's the thing that I had to deal with a lot of people that wanted to help me, is that these people all have lives, you know? They got to go to work. They can't exactly go showing up to fucking court dates. They can't afford to go to those court dates if they don't go to work. They don't want to lose their kids. And then they also have to worry about being targeted by the Bollingers. And the Bollinger family, they're fucking no good. I mean, they're a bunch of addicts. They're like my family. I mean, fuck, you know my family.
Oh God, yes, do I ever. Tara, I keep talking to Tara every once in a while, and man, that girl is so fucked up. What has happened to her?
I don't know. I mean, you know, the thing with her, she doesn't want to talk to me because I told on Michael. But the thing is, like, you knew about Michael fucking and that whole Chimo shit before I did. I had to hear it from Brenda Dickinson.
Yeah, I heard it from Michael himself. Yeah, so I guess I'm a person that people just open up to and tells me everything.
It's the same thing with me. And then, you know, when I'm like with Dee Dee and Rebecca Klang, you know, Rebecca first got a hold of me on Facebook and sent me a friend request, and she was telling me about her dad hitting her and her sister molesting her, and that's how she opened up to me with that friend request. And I got a hold of her mom. I was like, "Hey, you know, your daughter sent me a friend request. I don't feel comfortable about it, you know." And she's like, "Well, you know, she's old enough. I think it's all right for her to be friends with you." And when all this shit went down with Natalie, and they wanted to help me, and you know, they had other stuff going on in their life, like, you know, relatives dying and shit. Like, that's the thing, is that people weren't understanding that, you know, people are trying to help me. They have their own lives. They're having a lot of fucked up shit that they have to deal with. And that's why I need an autism advocate. You know, I need somebody who understands, and also somebody whose job it is to actually do these things. And when I spoke out and said, "Hey, this is the issues, these are the reasons that these people aren't able to help me," those people got mad at me for telling their personal business. I'm like, you know, that's the thing, is that you're not getting attacked by the public. You're not being assaulted by the public. And if you are, you need to go to the police about it. And so many people, like from Candace, you know, to like a lot of different people, were targeted by the police and were targeted by the Bollingers and their cronies, and nobody would do a damn thing about it. I mean, I can't go to the police. I need the police's help to get the Bollingers to stop their bullshit. And in order to get the police to stop their bullshit, I need the Bollinger family to help. I needed Natalie's mom to help. You know, I mean, all of this stuff didn't need to happen over the internet. This stuff didn't need to happen on Facebook. It needed to be done in a civilized fashion where I could sit down with my accusers and show them what the hell was happening. Like today, I got to get on and I gotta finish trying to post up the Tim Beeson messages between me and him on Messenger. And then after I'm done with that, I got to go into some of the groups that he was in, that he was threatening me in. And I got to hold my phone and record as much as I can until my phone is full again. And then I have to wait 2 to 3, sometimes 5 hours for it to completely download the video. And then I have to wait for it to completely download so that it's saved. And then once it's saved, I have to delete it from my device. That way I can make room to record more of it. And this just takes so much time.
Yeah.
I mean, the police slandered the shit out of me, and they went out of their way to try to get the medical community to help them, and they do. I mean, if you're homeless, you know, they do that to homeless people all the time, especially in Colorado. You try to turn in a police officer, they transfer you to a medical facility and try to have you pegged as fucking schizophrenic.
Oh, no.
Am I schizophrenic?
No. My ex-husband, Tara's dad, Jason, he was schizophrenic. There's a complete difference.
That's the thing, is that when I'm going in and I'm having a severe fucking meltdown, like, these are supposed to be medical professionals. They obviously know the difference between somebody who's or should know the difference between somebody who's schizophrenic and somebody who's having a meltdown. But then when you're taken in by police, they take the police recommendations. It's kind of like when you go to the schools and the schools say, "Hey, your kid needs to be on Ritalin." These people are not qualified to tell you that your kid needs to be on Ritalin. You know, these are teachers. These are supposed to be educators. You know, Ritalin is the furthest thing from what most of these kids need. That's literally it's legal meth that they're feeding these kids, and a lot of them, it makes them worse. Or like in my case, you know, with me having ADHD, it turns me into a zombie.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
You did know me during my zombie phase.
I did. You were so quiet and calm, and yeah.
I also didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, half the time you didn't.
Well, that was a situation with my dad too. Like my dad, when I was up there in Washington State, and they had me on, what was it, lithium and ORAP.
Oh God.
I mean, I literally, one day I sat on my dad's couch and I literally pissed my train.
I hear it.
I literally sat on his couch and I pissed myself on his couch on the first day, and I stayed there for like 2 days. I couldn't function. They wanted to give me 2 types of medications for my panic attacks. The first one I'm supposed to take every day, and it makes me a fucking zombie. And then there's the one that I'm supposed to take at the onset of an attack. My panic attacks generally last, 2 to 3 hours,
Yeah.
and the medication doesn't kick in for 2 to 3 hours. So there's no reason to take it. And after it kicks in, I can't move. There were times where I was completely catatonic. Literally could not move.
Well, I know it's still illegal in Nebraska, but have you ever thought of, once you get your disability money, of trying like CBD oil and that for your panic attacks? It's supposed to really help.
That's the only thing that's ever helped. But the thing is, it depends on the panic attack. If it's about something like, I have to be able to process, to have a quiet environment so that I can process all of this evidence that's been piling up. And if I take any sort of CBD derivatives or THC derivatives, it'll shut me down, and I can't think well enough to do that. It gives me the same issues as taking pills.
Hold up, baby.
But if it's social anxiety disorder,
okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Tara.
That's all right. If I have to go talk to the police, then in that particular situation, yeah, I'm already on high anxiety standby, and in a situation like that, yeah, I should probably get stoned before I go talk to the cops.
Yeah.
Or if I have to go to court, I should probably get stoned before court. Or
yeah.
If I have a situation where I have to go to a social gathering, like a funeral or something like that, it's probably a good idea for me to have some sort of THC derivative or CBD derivative.
And I have Anthony on CBD now. And it seems to work. It calms him down, but the kind he needs that works for him, oh my God, I have to get it in gummy form because he won't take it any other way. I've tried. So it's like $70 for 60 days of gummies. Yeah, so I mean it's expensive, but it seems to work. If he gets it, like yesterday when he got in his mood and put a hole in my wall, I gave him a gummy. He calmed down in like 10 minutes, and I was able to get him out of the house.
And that's something people don't understand about you know, both THC and CBD, is that it's immediately soluble. I mean, it's not something that it takes 2 to 3 hours for it to kick in. Now,
I know.
Then there's the situation where if they inject you with these medications, it's immediate, like boom. If they put Haldol in me, the first reaction that I have as soon as the Haldol kicks in is to beat whatever is around me to death. And I tell them when they ask me if I have any allergies, I tell them I'm allergic to medications. Any medication that you're going to give me, I'm going to have an adverse reaction to. And they're like, no, you can't be allergic to medications. I'm like, yeah, I may not have the whole swelling my throat shut reaction, but I have adverse reactions. If there's something on there that, like, all right, for example, one of the things if you take antidepressants is that you might actually try to kill yourself. So sorry, that's my it's beeping because it's Chloe's birthday and she was telling me thank you because I told her I hope she had a good birthday.
Okay.
I think her birthday was yesterday actually, but her Facebook says it's today. What was I talking about?
Adverse reactions.
Right. So if I take antidepressants, it makes me depressed and wants me to kill and makes me actually act on suicidal thoughts, which is one of the side effects that they have listed. If I take mood stabilizers, the mood stabilizers stabilize me on depressed, and there's a lot of other medications that they just piss me off. I can't take Haldol. Haldol will piss me off. If I take Ativan will turn me into a zombie, but it also it fucks my head up. It makes me so that I am so loopy that I can't connect two words in a sentence. It all comes out completely wrong. It's like if you overwhelm me by having 2 or 3 people drill me at once, or somebody snapping at me, like my words aren't going to connect. At that point, I'm stressed the fuck out.
Yeah. I know how that is. Anthony's had those issues too.
Yep.
That's why I went all natural for his sleeping. It's melatonin, CBD, calm him down. Yeah, I went all natural.
And see, I was able to do that for a lot of years, the natural stuff to put me to sleep. Like I used marijuana for, I want to say 4 years to help me get to sleep. But the other thing is, once I left Virginia and I was having, because Natalie got into like 4 accidents in less than 2 months. She had her tires on her car blew, and then the day that she tried to commit suicide because I wasn't there fast enough, and then she got into an accident with her sister during the hurricane. And then she got into another accident because she got into a vehicle with a drunk asshole who was like, holy shit, she was in a lot of accidents. So when I left there, like, I didn't start having those really bad dreams until I got to Boulder, and it was just a few hours of being there before the meth heads were fucking harassing me. And I started having those nightmares. And then the nightmares started getting worse and more frequent because I couldn't go see my loved ones. And I was worried sick about Natalie being with her family. And, because she was suicidal over her family before I ever met her. Like by the time I met her, she was 13. She had cuts all over her arms. And I didn't want to, honestly, I didn't want to have anything to do with her, but I felt really bad for her. I knew that there was a lot of shit there that, especially at her age, like you couldn't hang out with somebody that age. It's not like here in Chapel, Nebraska, where I was friends with Miss Jerry and I was also friends with her kids,
Yeah.
It's just not the same. If people see you hanging out with a 13-year-old out on fucking Pearl Street, they're like, that dude's probably trying to fuck her and stuff like that. And
I know. Yeah.
But I looked out the best for them as I could from a distance, I mean, all them kids that were hanging out down there. The biggest issue is that when you got a pretty girl like that and she's coming down there, and she was selling drugs for her dad, by the way. She said drugs. I just assumed marijuana, but I found out later different. But you know, when you've got those pretty girls hanging out down there, then the boys want to come down there and hang out because they want to hang out with the pretty girls that they got a crush on, and then they create a whole bunch of drama, and they want to start fights, and they want to, you know, pull out knives and all sorts of fucked up shit. And then you got predators like Emery and Arturo that are down there, and like that just ends up a whole fucking rat's nest. The last time that I saw Natalie and Alicia before they came back into my life, like it's because they were in sleeping bags with Emery and Arturo, and I told them they needed to go home, and I fucking gave Emery and Arturo the whole fucking runaround about fucking sleeping in sleeping bags with little girls and how that's some fucking sicko chimo shit. And they're like, "Oh no, nah, dude, we were just keeping them warm. We were just keeping them safe." I'm like, if you really were trying to just keep them warm and keep them safe, you'd have either A, had them both sleep in the same sleeping bag, or you'd have given them each a sleeping bag and stood guard while they fucking slept. But it also makes sense now while they were down on Pearl Street instead of at their dad's house getting raped.
Yeah. Well, I hate to cut you off, but I need to go do my breathing treatment.
You good?
I do want to say one thing. If you can talk to your autism group people that call you, and if you need the money for your license and the checking account, when I get better, I can send you it if you can find out how much you need.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I want to help you, and I can't really be there physically, but I could send you some money to get your license and your checking account open.
Yes, ma'am. And Chris Stegeman, he said I could use his car. He's got a Ford Taurus, so he said I could use it to do my driver's test if I have to.
Okay, good. Okay, so just let me know, and when I get better, we'll figure out how we're going to send the money, and I will send it to you. You can get all that accomplished. That way, that's out of the way, and you don't have to stress over that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Sean. Well, I will talk to you later.
All right, love you. Be safe.
All right. Bye, Sean.
Bye, Amanda. All right. I am so glad when other people hang up. That is such a pain in the ass. Looks like somebody I don't know just messaged me. I don't know who this lady is, but we will find out. Marissa Witcher. I wonder if she's related to Amy and Andrew Witcher. I typed, oh, this is Regional West. Facebook has all sorts of advertisements. If you type something in there, they start sending me advertisements. They've been sending me advertisements about dating singles in the military because I type stuff about the military quite a bit. And I type about being alone quite a bit, but it's a different type of alone than you guys might imagine. For you guys, when you talk about being lonely, you're talking about you don't have a boyfriend or you don't have a girlfriend. And for me, it's not even close to that. But because I've been bitching about Regional West, now I have this shit coming up. There's a clinic here in Chapel. I can't go to this clinic because it's Regional West. That's the same company that owns the Carbon County Hospital. They also own the hospital in Sydney and the one in Scotts Bluff and the one in South Dakota that I went to. I mean, they own a lot of places. And since my issues started off with a Regional West facility trying to cover for police officers here in Chapel, Nebraska, I have to deal with that everywhere that is Regional West. Marissa Witcher asked me why. So at least it's not something completely fucking negative, right? Um, Well, my phone is almost dead. I should have had it plugged in this whole time. So it'll probably be a few minutes before I'm able to record all that, the rest of the stuff with Tim Beeson. But once I have that saved, I'll download it for you guys. Um, Tim Beeson was an asshole. He wanted to fucking talk some shit, and instead of allowing me to reply, he blocked me. So when Natalie died, and I unblocked because he was threatening my life in these groups, and I was seeing it. I did the same thing to him. A lot of the tactics that people use on me, I use them back on them. He was typing something big and long, and I was trying to block him, and he was typing so much that even though it took me 3 or 4 minutes to try to find the thing to block him, he didn't get whatever it is that he was typing, whatever long-winded bullshit that he was trying to send me. He didn't get it sent before I blocked him, and I'm sure that pissed him off. Anyway, y'all be safe.